As we look at some examples of how to use displacement, we'll start out with just what happens when we have displacement in one dimension. So to make sure we understand what's going on, whenever you have a change in position, it's called displacement. When we're talking about one dimension, you can either choose horizontal or vertical using X or Y or Z or Q or whatever variable you choose to use. I'm going to use X for our standard displacement. And you always calculate the final minus the initial. So that will be delta X is X minus X0. X is the final position. X0 is the initial position. And if you get a positive or a negative sign, that tells you something about the direction. So let's say an object starts out at t equals 0 at the origin, x equals 0. It goes to the right to a position of positive 3 meters. And to find that displacement, we just plug into the formula. Delta x equal to x minus x0. So that's our final position is 3 meters. Our initial position is 0. So our displacement is positive 3 meters. Positive meaning it goes to the right. Let's say it goes back to the origin from that position there. So now we still plug into the formula, but now our final position is back at the origin. Our initial position was 3 meters, so our displacement is negative 3 meters. That means it moved 3 meters to the left, which makes sense. That's just how we represent it mathematically. Now, if we want to find the overall displacement for both sets of movements, we just look at the final minus the initial, and the final is 0, the initial is 0. So a displacement is 0 meters. Even though you've moved a certain distance, your displacement is 0 because you're back where you started. Now, displacement and distance traveled aren't the same thing. When you're finding the distance traveled, you would add the magnitude or absolute value of all the displacements to figure out the distance. So in the first displacement, we moved 3 meters to the right. Then the second displacement, we moved 3 meters to the left. So that means we'd have an overall displacement of 0 meters, but the distance traveled would be 3 meters plus 3 meters, or 6 meters. Just make sure you keep those two things separate and you should be fine.